Hello Body Tide, all things archery and shooting. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to do a review on the Tooth of the Arrow broadheads. This is a company that's located in Minnesota, and they're all USA made. They build all their broadheads in-house right here in the US with US manufacturing, US supplies, and US labor and workers. Which, being a big patriot like I am, I love all that whole made in USA thing. So when they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to send you some of our broadheads to try out on your YouTube channel," I gotta be honest, I'd never even heard of them before they reached out to me, and then I started doing some research on it, and I said to them, well, you know I shoot traditional bows, right? And recurves longbows. They said, yes, that's why we want you to review these arrows, because we want to get more into that traditional market. I said, okay, yeah, send me some, I'll give them a shot. And they asked what do you want. I said, what do you have? He said, we have 100, 125 grain, and 175 grain. I said, well, send me a couple of each, and I'll try each one out and see which one I like, and I'll do a review on them for you. So, a week or so later, they arrived at my front door. So basically, Tooth of the Arrow, they manufacture these broadheads in-house in Minnesota, like I said. I got their information here off the webpage. They have weights from 100 grain all up to 175 grain. They're 4-blade fixed, and they go from 1 inch to 1 1/16 of an inch. They're heat treated for a Rockwell hardness of 45. They have a black oxide coating so they won't rust. Their cutting edge is a standard 45-degree cutting edge. So you can sharpen these right up on any stone, wet stone, oil stone you have. They have a chisel point design. What's cool about it is the weight, location. The whole broadhead, 80% of the whole broadhead is actually, the weight, 80% of that broadhead is perfectly in line with the shaft. So it's like, they say it flies like a field point, so we're going to test that, okay? They're a very low profile design, so there's supposed to be no wind planing or anything of that nature, all right? What's unique also about them is they're a one-piece construction. That means they're made out of a solid piece of bar steel, and each one is cut from a solid piece of bar steel and then sharpened on a machine, then hand honed after that to a razor sharpness, okay? Today we're going to be testing the 125 grain. They do supply these broadheads in vented or non-vented solids. And you can get them in 100, like I said, 125 or 175. Now the 175s are only available in the solid, but you can get the 100 grains and the 125 grains either vented or non-vented, okay? So let's get a close-up of these broadheads and we'll head out the range, put them through their paces, all right? Okay, as you can see, they come in a nice little package here. They're come with a wrench. Each one comes with a wrench. They come 3 to a pack. Retail price for the solid are $49.95, for the vented are $44.95. I'm sorry, the solid are $44.95, and the vented, because they're a larger cutting diameter, are $49.95. The solids have a 1-inch diameter cut with a 2-inch of total cutting diameter. Okay, the same 125s in the XL, the V series, which is the vented series, these have a 1 3/16 of an inch cut. That's a huge cut, and double the cutting total on the vented blades. All right, that should be really good. Now let's take a look at them here. This is the vented blade, 125 grain. You can see they're very low profile on your broadhead. I mean on your arrow, but you can look. They are just. You can see they're machined from a solid piece of steel. All right. Let's look at the profile of the vented blade. Okay. So you can see the vented blade profile, as you can see there. It's a 1 3/16 inch cut, all right? And if you look down there, 80% of the weight of the arrow is in line with the shaft. This part right here, that's 80% of the weight of the head. So it gives you good FOC as well, all right? They are razor sharp right out of the package. They have this really hard chisel point on the front. Let's take a look at the 100 grain. 100 grain is a little more slimline, so it should fly a little bit more accurately, I would think, than the vented, and it should be much quieter. I've shot vented blades in the past when I was shooting compounds, and most vented blades do whistle a little bit through the air. You really can't hear them, but some of you can. But solid blade is actually a much more stronger blade. As you can see, it's all machined, solid. It's very well built. It's got a nice chisel point on it as well. You see the profile of it right here. Okay. All right. Do it this way for you. See the profile of it? You look at down the shaft of it, 80% of the weight is on the shaft there. You see that? Okay? And again, it's razor sharp as well too. Okay? Compare the two together, you can see a huge difference in their cutting area. All right. So there's a big difference in the cutting area on these. Now I am noticing on this one here, it is so, I mean, you look at down that thing, it's spooky look down that thing, how much area, cutting area you have on that broadhead. Look at that thing. I'll get you a better look at that. I wish I could hold it better for you. Let's do it like this. Maybe you can see it better like this. There you go. See how that broad, how wide that is from the front, okay? Either one of these would be great for like any kind of North American game, whitetail, boar hog, elk, javelina, whatever you're hunting actually. So, and as you look on the back here, you can see they show how it's built from one solid piece of bar steel, okay? All right. Okay, we'll start with the solid ones first. Just take them right out of the package. Okay. There's that wrench I was telling you about. Pretty nice handy wrench you have there. Okay. All right, now let's take them out of the package. I'm going to get my notepad here, and we're going to go ahead and weigh each one, okay? This first one comes in right at 124 grains. Okay. This one comes in at right on the money, 124 grains. This one here, that one, let's try that again, 124.8. Okay, double check them. So this one's 124.8. 124 on the money. And 124 on the money. Okay, so that is a difference of 0.8, okay? Now, we'll go ahead and we'll try the vented ones, see how they compare. Get these out of the pack also. Okay. Okay, we got the vented ones here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, now we're going to go ahead and measure the 125 vented. So first one, 125.4, okay? Second one, 125.2. Very close. Third one. Ooh, that one's way off, 124. Okay, we'll measure this one more time. All right, first one, 124. $125.4 and 125.2. Okay, so there is a difference of 1.2 grains. So we got 0.8 grains and 1.2 grains. That's still within margin. That's pretty respectable. Okay. All right. Now I want to check the thickness of the blades. Okay. Check that next. I'm going to use my old school dial caliber, and we'll check the solid one first. I'm going to run it right down the side of it, pinch it together, try to make sure I'm zeroed. Yep, I'm zeroed. Put it right together here, all the way. Comes in at 40 thousandths, okay? So this one's 0.040, 40 thousandths. Now let's check this one here, the vented one. I think these are smaller, thinner blades. And yes, they are. They are 0.36. 36 thousandths. So 36 thousandths for the vented and 40 thousandths for the solid, okay? All right. Okay, we're gonna head back out to the range now. Put these to its pace. And the way I'm gonna test these, I'm gonna test these Not like some other with people on these YouTube. I'm not going to be shooting these into concrete blocks or through metal, sheet metal, or in crazy stuff like that. What I am going to do is I am going to take a field point arrow, target arrow, shoot one arrow into the target at 20 yards and at 30 yards. Then I'm going to take one solid and one vented broadhead tipped arrow and shoot the same point of aim and see how close it comes to that target arrow at 20 and 30 yards. And then I'm going to shoot 3 arrow group with the vented and a 3 arrow group with the solid to see how tight they group at 20 yards. And then we'll finish the test up with, we'll shoot through a piece of 3/4 inch plywood to see how sturdy they are. Now I've used 3/4 inch plywood. That's more what you're going to find out in the wild, out in the woods if you're hunting. You're going to be shooting in trees and branches and limbs and things like that. I've never seen a concrete block out in the woods or a piece of sheet metal steel that I'm going to be sticking into the wood. So we're going to be using a piece of 3/4 inch plywood to simulate like a tree or a tree stump or maybe a tree limb that might hit out while you're out hunting. And we're going to see how far these penetrate through each of those. All right. I'm a little concerned because they are a 4-bladed head. There's a lot of cutting surface. I don't think it's going to make it through that 3/4 inch plywood. Because my 2-blade barely make it through. My 2-blade will punch through it. Both of them, like I use magnets, I use super razor heads, and I use Zwicky heads. All 3 of those I've shot through 3/4 inch plywood, and they do punch through the other side. I'm just not sure if these are going to make it through the other side, but we'll see. Maybe they will. All right, we're going to be shooting a Bear Super Grizzly recurve bow on 400 grain arrows that weigh 620 grains. The bow comes in at 51 pounds at my drawing, 29.5 inches, so it should be a pretty good shoot. The bow is perfectly tuned for the arrows, so there should be no issues with flight at all. I mean, the bow shoots where it's supposed to, where I look at it and where I aim at it. There's a review on that bow actually in this channel. You want to check it out. So let's head out to the range, see how these broadheads perform. All right, see you out there. Okay, we're out on the range here now. We're going to be testing these tooth of the arrow broadheads. I'm going to be shooting out of my 51-pound Super Grizzly bow. We're going to be using these 400 carbon shafts that come in at 620 grains. They're running a 100 grain insert up front, 125 grain point on them, 4-inch turkey feathers. We're going to step off 20 yards. I'm going to shoot one field point arrow into this target here. Then I'm going to shoot a broadhead right next to it. First we'll shoot the solid broadhead, then we'll shoot the vented and see how close to the group original target. They say these shoot the same as field point. We're going to test that. Then once that's done, we're going to step off back another 20 yards, and we're going to step off back 30 yards and do the same thing. Shoot one arrow, and then shoot the vented in the solid and see how close it comes together at 30 yards. And after that's done, we're going to shoot 3 arrow groups of each of the 125 grain vented and the 125 grain solid, and see how tight they group on the target from 20 and 30 yards. Okay, let's go ahead and let's get that done. Here we go. Get started. 20 yards. First arrow, target. Okay, next arrow is going to be the 125 grain solid broadhead. Here we go. 20 yards. Okay. Next arrow will be the 125 grain slotted broadhead. Good. Okay, this is 20 yards. That's less than an inch from each other. This is the field point arrow right here, target point arrow. Okay, this one I believe is, yep, this is the solid arrow. Okay, that's the solid. This is the solid one. And this one here is field point arrow. Right here. Alright. So they do pretty much shoot the same point of aim. Now let's go ahead and step back that 30 yards and try that same test, okay? We'll shoot a field point first, then we'll shoot the solid, then we'll shoot the vented, 125 grain. All right, 30 yards. Okay, field point. Solid's next. This is the solid arrow. Okay, it's almost the same hole, 30 yards. Now we have the vented broadhead. Okay. Let's look what we got here. Now the last shot, this is the vented broadhead. Let me take it off. Okay. This one here, it was probably about an inch, maybe 2 inches away from the other group. Alrighty. But if you look here at 30 yards, if you look at 30 yards here, I almost split an arrow at 30 yards because it, do you see that there? The broadhead took a hunk out of my fletchings there. See that? That broadhead took a hunk out of my fletchings right there. It's almost the same exact hole. Almost the same exact hole. All right. So they do pretty much shoot to the same point of aim. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and shoot these solids for a group. We'll shoot 3 arrows for a group. Aim right here. 3 of these 125 grain solids, and see how these 3 arrows group together. Okay. Well, that's pretty darn tight right there. I thought at first I'm going to split an arrow the way I heard that noise smack it, but I've got 3 arrows touching each other. It's about an inch and a half away from where I was aiming at to the high. So it's shooting just a little bit high to the left when you shoot the broadheads themselves. Probably needs a little more tuning, but I mean they are shooting very accurately though. Okay, look how tight that group is. That's what broadhead, y'all. That's one tight group. Problem is, these broadheads really destroy these targets. Okay. All right, as you can see, 3 arrows, maybe 1.5 inches from the center. I don't know. My aiming point was here, but I was hitting up here to the top left. All right. Now we're gonna, ooh, they're still sharp too, still razor sharp. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the 125 grain vented. These are the solids. We're gonna try the 125 grain vented. All right. This time we're gonna shoot my bear over here. So I don't want to keep destroying my hog target. So we're gonna shoot the bear next, okay? Alrighty. We're gonna shoot this one next. I'll aim for here. 3 arrows, 20 yards, 125 grain silty group. Sorry guys, it's really hot. I got sweat drip my eyes and everything right now. It's gonna be 90 degrees out by 85, 90% humidity. Anyway, it's 3 shots. I was aiming for here, 125, maybe a 3-inch group. No, yeah, 2.5, 3-inch group. Not too bad. I tell you one thing, these vintage heads though, these are the vented 120, they're a big shooting head. They are louder. I can definitely hear a little whistling with them, which is kind of surprising. But yeah, these things are, you hear a little whistling on them when they're coming through the air. Okay. Still extremely accurate though. Hey everybody, final test today is going to be a penetration test. I'm going to be using 3/4 inch plywood, not 1/2 inch, not 1/4 inch, just 3/4 inch plywood. I'm not going to be shooting a concrete or bricks or anything like that like some other people do. Wood is more of a natural substance you'll find out in the woods. Your broadheads are going to hit trees and branches and stuff, and they got to hold up and hit something like that. So we're going to shoot the 125V vented over there, the vented broadhead, and we'll shoot the 125 solid here and see how each one holds up and how far it punches the back of this plywood, if it makes through the back of the plywood. This is 3/4 inch, so it's pretty thick. I am shooting a 51-pound Bear Super Glizzy recurve, so it should punch through it, but we'll see. All right, let's try that out. 1 arrow each. Hopefully my arrows don't break. Okay. take a look. Looks like neither one made it through, as you can see. And then the 125 solid. They both went about the same distance. Let's see if I can get them out of there and see what it look like, okay? Let's take this here, look. This is the vented blade ones. So I don't like vented blades. This one I found was much louder than the other ones. It wasn't quite as accurate. But if you look here, it's actually got a nick out of the blade itself going through that 3/4 inch plywood. And that blade is bent just a little bit, as you can see. If you look at it, it's bent just ever so slightly, but it's definitely got a huge gouge in it right there. One there. That's the only one that's got the gouge in is that side there. And it bent that one blade right there a little bit. Okay? Alright. Okay. Let's take a look at the solid one now, okay? This one flew the best, it held up the best, it shot better than all of it. It's a smaller cutting diameter, total of 2 inches of cutting surface, 1 inch cutting diameter, compared to an inch and 3/16 with 4 inch total cutting diameter. But this one has much thicker blades and it held up much stronger. I don't see any damage to the blades at all. There's no issues, no dings, nothing even out of the blade after going through that piece of plywood there. Alright? Okay. Alright, tooth of the arrow, final thoughts. Alright? First I want to mention they're both 125 grain broadheads. They're both milled from a solid piece of bar steel, which is really nice. The blade thickness is 0.35 on the vented and 0.40 on the unvented. The unvented solid has a 1 inch cutting diameter for 2 inches of total cutting area. The vented one has a huge 1 3/16 of an inch with a 4 inch cutting area, twice the cutting area for the same weight. Now, a lot of people might like twice the cutting area, but after shooting them the way while I'm out in the range, what I like best, I find that if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose the 125 solid. Let me tell you why. First off, the 125 solid flew better, it flew straighter, was more accurate, okay? Also, it's built tougher. There's no damage to the blades at all from that piece of 3/4 inch plywood. I was kind of surprised that neither one of these punched through that 3/4 inch plywood. Well, like I've said, I've shot my 2-blade Magnus. I've shot Bear Super old school Bear Super razor heads. I've shot Zwickey Black Diamonds, and all 2-blade from that same bow, and they all punched right through that 3/4 inch plywood. So I'm not sure why these didn't do it. Maybe because of the surface area is much wider, much larger, because it's a 4-blade instead of a 2-blade. But they both made it about the same distance, about 3/4 inch way into that 3/4 inch plywood. All right. This one came out pretty easily. This one I had to really dig out. This one coming out of the plywood was damaged. The one of the blades was bent and nicks in it. So if I had to choose which one I would pick over the other, I'd take this one just because it's a much stronger blade and a more accurate. I would take accuracy and strength over cutting diameter. You know, that's just me. You might have a different take on it, okay? Don't get me wrong, they're both good broadheads. This thing shot really well. These shot an average, this shot really well also. But I just never liked vented broadheads. They're never strong, and they're also, this thing you actually hear whistling through the air when it's flying through the air. I mean, I've really never heard a broadhead whistle before, but if you listen on the video, you can hear these whistling when they're shooting, which is kind of interesting. I never had a broadhead whistle before. Overall, sharpness, they're both super sharp, both still raised. They both still hold their edge real well. They both shave hair still after going through those targets and going through that plywood. And they're both easy to sharpen. Just put them on a stone and you'll be back to razor sharp. I mean, they do fly pretty close to me. This flies really close to field point accuracy. I mean, almost the same hole, and they group in the same hole. These fly pretty close to. There's a little bit off from your point of aim, maybe an inch or so off, but they group within 2 inches, which is nice. All right. So you just got to decide which one you like. Me personally, if I was to choose one, especially if I'm shooting traditional, if I'm going to use these for hunt, I would go with the solid one. But like I said, nothing wrong with these. If you like a bigger cutting diameter and you're shooting through soft skin game like white-tailed deer, this would be probably a perfect head for that. It'll cut a really big hole and it'll punch right through. There's no really hard bone, except maybe at a shoulder or something. This one here, I would reserve for shooting through hogs. Even though it's a smaller cutting diameter, it's got a lot more punching power. I think it's much more solid, and I would have no hesitation punching through the shoulder of an elk or a deer with this one and worry about it not holding together. This one, I might have a little reservation about it, just the way, because that little piece of 3/4 inch plywood did some damage to those blades. So they're both heat treated the same. They both have the same Rockwell hardness. So I don't know why, except the only thing is maybe because this is vent. You got a pretty good sized vent hole in there, made it much weaker. So, but anyway, like I said, that's my take on these. I'll be doing a review on the 175, which is more my speed. I shoot in the 160 to 170 grain arrows on my 2-bladed heads. So I'll be doing the 175 grain review next. And then we're also going to be reviewing the 100 grain heads in a very near future as well. So stay tuned for all those. I want to thank Tooth of Arrow for sending these to me. If you look down in the description box, there'll be a link down here. If you click on that link, you can get a big discount from Tooth Arrow for purchasing these heads by using that link that was assigned to me. It'll save you some money and it'll help me support my channel as well too. And check it out. If you really want to try these out, get you a set of both. See which one you like the best, which one shoots the best for you, and I would not be too concerned going to the woods or either one of these hunting, okay? All right, but in my choice of the two, between these two, the vented and the solid, I would take the solid. All right, well, this has been Todd, All Things Archery Shooting. I want to thank you guys for watching, and until next time, ciao.